now that we know the former president is safe and the Republican convention is moving ahead as planned, we turn our attention now to what this means for the current campaign, for the Trump team, and for the current President Joe Biden and his team. Joining us now to talk more about how this will play out is Royal Roads University Associate Professor of Communication and Culture, David Black. David, thanks so much for taking the time. I appreciate there's a lot of moving pieces and things are moving very quickly now. But as you look towards starting tomorrow, Monday, the Republican convention underway, how do you see this changing what may have been in plan weeks or even months ago?
Right. Well, let's start with Republicans, and with the caveat that it's always difficult to speak about kind of the political process after a shocking and near fatal assassination attempt yesterday on former President Trump. So just want to acknowledge the awkwardness of that. The Republicans are going into what will be a multi-million-dollar infomercial for the Republican brand, and at the center of that will be Donald Trump. Even before this kind of tragic event, it was going to be centered around Trump, his story, the rhetoric, his attempt to come back and win after losing in 2020, and themes that were already in the political discourse around martyrdom, around sacrifice, around the almost mystical connection to his base. All that is going to be played out over the next 4 days with that remarkable image of him covered in blood in Butler, PA, having just been shot in the ear.
And without sounding callous and without sounding overly cynical, there is no question that American politics is a ruthless industry. And as you mentioned, there are hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars on the line. There's a lot of power on the line. When you watch something like this, when the campaign teams go back into their war rooms, there is no question that they are, I would think, starting to look at how they use this moment to propel Donald Trump over the top. Am I right in that?
Well, politics is about catching a wave, and right now the zeitgeist, the wave is with the Trump campaign. It arguably was already there, given Biden's miserable sort of debate performance 2 weeks ago, and Trump's sort of uncustomary sort of moderation and not kind of jumping in and getting in the way of that failure. So I think right now for the Republicans, it's about amplifying messages that were already present in the discourse. And politics is really about moments. We read it more like photographs than film. We had a moment yesterday. We have an indelible image of the former president covered in blood. That will be essentially the message around which the entire convention and arguably the campaign will run. It's this candidate cares enough about his base, enough about America, that he is, he's prepared to die for the cause. With respect to the Democrats, their challenge is deeper, because in some sense, your major message is your leader. And Joe Biden, having suffered that terrible debate, a debate that played to what had been held up as his potential age and the weaknesses that follow on that, he unfortunately only confirmed that suspicion, that rhetoric, that framing. And the question for the Democrats is, do we change the leader, and if so, how and when? All very different.
With this new narrative playing out because of the failed assassination attempt, and having to have the dignity to say that we can't have this type of violence, and President Biden having to acknowledge what occurred, and that we're praying for the safety of Donald Trump and his family. You have to get that part of the protocol out of the way. How do the Democrats reshift this into some sort of attack mode, or is this the automatic trigger to dismiss Biden from that role?
Well, the short-term attacking the former president is going to be very difficult, because he has been literally attacked by a 20-year-old sniper. So I think you're going to see a week during the Republican convention when you have radio silence on the Democrats' part, not a lot of political messaging. They've already pulled some of their advertising in light of this attack. And it will give them a week to figure out what next. Arguably, I think the only way to really change the narrative here, which again I think is going Trump's way, is to change Biden as leader and come forward with a different kind of contrast. Not an 81-year-old candidate, but someone fresh, young, with a vision of the future. And that
How big of a window do you think this is for them?
There's not a lot of time. The Democrats' convention is in Chicago in mid-August. If Biden, and it really depends on Biden, if he decides that he's going to step down, then you either have the vice president being chosen as his successor, or a kind of a convention-based primary, really, where candidates stepped up, there's a debate and a process that the party brokers.
And do you really think that Joe Biden would volunteer to step down as president of the United States, or do you think there's a bigger conversation or some way, a graceful way out of this if it were to occur?
Well, it's not going to be graceful. I think his several weeks now of resistance to the idea that the debate was not just a bad night, but maybe indicative of an ongoing condition of kind of the aging of this man. I think he's left his party in a position where it's going to be awfully clumsy and difficult. But what is clarifying here is that the Democrats are likely to lose this election, not just for the president, but lose the Senate and the House if things don't change. And if he has a legacy he wants to protect, the only way to do that is perhaps to step aside and let a new generation of leadership contend.
Unbelievable story that the world is watching. Really appreciate your time. Thanks so much, David.
Good to be here, Scott.